Okay. Good morning, Joe.
Good morning.
Okay. As we're reading the minutes, please make sure everyone signs in. Oh, I just logged into the DLT documents. I didn't mean to do that. Okay. Keep going. We have high school representation from the superintendent's office. I don't think so. Okay. So for anyone that's logging on late, just so everyone knows, I sent the minutes on Friday. So if you've missed any of the beginnings of it, you can always check back. Louis, you can scroll down. Okay. Can I get consensus to approve the minutes? Any corrections, additions, subtractions? Thank you, Shirley. Always wait for you. Shirley starts the meeting. Thank you, ma'am. All right, Louis, can you just put up the agenda for me? So I want to start this meeting by saying congratulations to all of us. This is the last DLT meeting of the 2022-23 school year. As always, and you guys know, I truly love the work that we do together, and I believe that we're making a difference in the lives of all of our schools because of the decisions we make at the district level. So I just want to thank all of you. I know that as we emerged from this pandemic, it was a crazy year and the demands of our time increased. And everyone still made it a priority to be here this year. So I want to say thank you to all of you for that. We have 2 people graduating from the DLT this year. I want to start with Francis. Francis, I want to thank you so much for the work that you do as a parent leader. I know that you're going to find your way back into my life. So I'm just going to say au revoir for now, because I know that you love this district just as much as I do. So I'm going to say Francis going on a hiatus. She's doing a transition between elementary and middle school. But Francis, I will continue to see you, but I will also see you soon. And you know that. So I want to thank you for your commitment, not just to the DLT, but to President's Council and CPAC, and just how you have grown into an empowered parent who works on behalf of others and with others. So thank you, Francis. I want to give you a round of applause. I hope you're hearing me.
Thank you, Danielle. I appreciate you all, and I'll still be here to support you.
And we'll see you soon, right? We'll see you soon. I'm just
Yes.
going to say that. And Joe, I know that we spoke about you at our CEC meeting on Tuesday, but I want to thank you also for all of your service. Joe's daughter has graduated. She will be going to high school, but Joe has been on the CEC and a parent leader for 8 years, and it has been a true pleasure. Both of you have actually made me a better leader, a better parent, a better thinker. And I say to Joe all the time, the work that he's done with SEA and other parts of Central will be noticed and appreciated in this district for a long time. He'll be driving past schools being like, I did that, I made that school. So Joe, thank you just so much. You know, not a lot of parents do what you do for their community in terms of adding to the busy workload, talking to me on weekends at 10 o'clock at night, and you've done it so gracefully because just like Francis, you are truly committed to the District 25 community. I want to thank you for that. And hopefully I'll see you again soon.
Yes,
in some
thank you. And
capacity.
thank everybody, you know, on this DLT especially, because without your guidance, I don't think I would serve the way I wanted to serve. So I thank everybody here as well.
Thank you, Joe. And Shirley, I'm thinking you're staying, right? Because you better be, because I couldn't suffer another parental loss. So I'm just checking. You're staying, right?
Yeah, you got me for one more year.
Thank you. Because you know what? At first I was like, you know what? I'm going to check in, but I wouldn't be able to handle it. So I'll see you next year, Shirley. All right?
Mhm.
You're staying. So that's another conversation that I do want to have, and just talking to the DLT. Last year we decided on the same thing, and about not having a DLT meeting in July because we're going to be transitioning in a lot of leadership ways. So if the DLT is in consensus, we will not have that meeting in July, and we will do the meeting in August. We'll have a new CEC president at the time, or an old CEC. We don't know. You know what I'm saying? So it will be difficult around vacations. So if there's any feedback, I will take it from the DLT now. But if everyone is in consensus, we'll just skip the July meeting and plan the August meeting. Everyone in consensus?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yep.
would you guys like to have the August meeting? Last year we did it at the end of August, right as schools, like when everybody was coming back, so we had that information. So we could do September 28th, if everyone's okay with that, or we can do the 21st of August. Is there a preference? Shirley, I'm actually going to lean on you because, and Lamar and
Give me
Monique.
give me a
if you
second.
guys
Let
are
me look
okay
at my
with,
calendar.
yeah, to check your calendar, and Monique too.
Okay, the 21st.
Checking calendar, hold on. The date again, please?
We could either do the 21st of August or the 28th.
For me, I think 21st would be better. Well, but that's a
Both dates, okay, so Monique says both dates are good for her. So if Lamar, if you're in agreement, we could set the DLT date for the 21st.
Yes, 21st, yes.
Okay, you want to still do 9 a.m.?
Yep,
Okay. All right, so we're going to set that date for August 21st at 9 a.m. Thank you guys for that. And no July DLT meeting date. Okay. The next announcement that I want to make is on Friday, we announced to the community that Teresa Mashar from our DLT will be retiring. So congratulations to you, Miss Mashar. She has been a lifelong member of District 25. Currently, she serves on our team as the CSA district rep. And what I had said on Friday about Teresa is this one really stings for me because Teresa and I were teachers together when we were very, very young. And, you know, we've just kind of grown together in our work as educators and our commitment to District 25. So not only are we colleagues, but we're also friends. And so, Teresa, I appreciate you and all that you've done. Yeah, we are young, but she's older than me, just so you know, Shirley, and I'm going to put that out there. And I said on Friday, here she comes.
Thank you, Shirley, for putting in still young, because she said very, very young. And she just keeps telling everybody that I am older than her. But
I will
hey.
say, though, but I'm grayer than you. I have more gray than you. So, yes, Teresa, we just want to say a big congratulations to you. So in August, we'll also have a new CSA rep on our DLT as well. Correct, Teresa?
Should be. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Or Teresa's actually not retiring until September 1st, but Teresa, maybe if you can have conversations, so we, you know, at least you'll be able to introduce the person or however CSA wants to work that, but just to let them know the date of the August DLT meeting as well.
Problem. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. So I also want to announce to everyone that tonight is a mayor town hall meeting. Shirley, I don't know if you'll be, are you going to that? You're attending that?
There's so many. No, I have Queens High School President's Council.
Right. And that's
meeting this
why,
evening.
yes, that's why, Francis, I did not invite you to it because I know tonight you also have President's Council, correct?
Yeah, we have elections tonight.
Yes, I said something to Esther. So I just, I didn't know if you minded, but I'm not going to be able to be there because the meeting starts at 6:30.
Yeah, that's fine. I said I have to miss my daughter's band thing today because it starts at 6:30, her performance, but then I kind of think, well, the last band I went to was my son and it was torture, so maybe it's a good thing I'm.
All right, but Esther will be there with you, okay? And
So
I
I
will
guess,
have,
so we're just doing the elections then? We'll do the minutes and then just go into the elections, I guess.
yeah.
Okay.
All right. If you want to do a report, I can have Esther read the report. So if I'll prepare something for you if you want.
Yeah, I mean, whatever you want. If you want that, that's fine.
Yeah, I'll have her do some announcements because I wanted to wish them well and say thank you to them. Just for their service as well as parent leaders across the year. So Esther will be speaking about that, but I'll be at the mayor's town hall. So thank you. And if you need anything else during the day that you want me to have ready, you just email me and I'll have that ready for you. Okay. So the last piece is about we have our end of year assessments that we gave to our students. So Dr. Mike has compiled them for you. He's going to be presenting on the end of year assessments, how our students scored. Then he's going to be aligning that to this year's DCEP goals to see where we have done well and areas that we need to really take a closer look at. And so today, one of the things that I want you to think about, and I say this all the time, it doesn't hurt Dr. Mike and my feelings to sort of talk about areas that we need to grow, how we need to channel the way we're thinking about our targets across our goals, because Dr. Mike will say to you, you're going to see that we didn't meet some of our goals this year and some of the targets that we set for ourselves. And as we've had conversations across the year, we've spoken about the importance of moving our data in the right direction. So what I want to say today is, as we go over this, we really do want your feedback, because your feedback is going to help frame the way we plan for the 2023-24 school year. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. D'Antona. As always, thank you for the work that you do around keeping us up to date and breaking down data in a way that allows us to have some meaningful conversations. So Dr. Mike.
Sure. My pleasure. Hi, guys. Good morning. We're going to go through just kind of the information around the goal setting that we set at the beginning of the year on where we're still waiting some kids to take it, but it's not going to change the overall percentages all that much. A couple of kids when you're talking about thousands of children. So I'm giving you, while it's not 100% complete, because we still have some children that didn't get the assessment, didn't take the assessment yet, but it's a large enough group where it's not going to change things very much in the end. So I'm going to share with you my slide deck so you can see as I go along. And I will share this with Lewis too. I'll put it on the public site too, so that it's all up there for everyone who wants to see it. But what we're going to do, we'll talk about CEP benchmarking against Acadians, iReady reading, iReady math. Although again, iReady math, we didn't necessarily have a goal against, but we'll talk about that a little bit. We'll talk about chronic absenteeism. The Algebra 1 map assessment's not complete yet, so I won't be able to give you a picture of that until we meet again in August. And the parent piece, we're sending out the survey now to get some additional perspective on the parent goal that we set. But CEP benchmarking. Our priority one was all students learn to read well. This was primarily a goal for kindergarten through second grade. What we have seen is that we did make some progress, but we did not meet the 5% progress that we set forth at the beginning of the school year. These were the end year target marks that we were intending to get to, of 61% overall above grade level across kindergarten through second, 44% for our Hispanic learners and 50% for our Black learners. And what we did see is that we did grow by 2% plus for our kids in the all student subgroup, 41.73% for our Hispanic population and 48.87% for our Black population, which would bring us in short of what our 5% was, and just under 3% in some cases, over 3% in other cases. But needless to say, we did not meet that 5% mark for this particular area of focus. And I'll show you more information on that in a second in a couple of graphs. But this in terms of alignment to DCEP goals, this is currently where we fall in relationship to the targets that we set at the beginning of the year. And I'll show you more on that in just a minute. In terms of the attendance data, this one we recalibrated around the middle of the year to align more with what the city data stated for our chronic absenteeism rates. As of the end of May, it does appear that we have reduced by that 5% for each of the target groups that we had set forth, all students, Hispanic learners, and our Black learners. We have seen a reduction from that beginning space of 41% to just under 34. And guys, I say we're meeting this goal, but there is still a tremendous amount of work that we need to do to reduce these rates. When we're at 34, 35% of children being chronically absent, it is a significant percentage of our kids that are not in school in that space of above 90%. So we need to certainly continue to work on this end. And we'll talk about that more in just a moment. You'll see the rates in a chart in a few moments. In terms of priority 3, this was around all of our students receiving that high quality academic experience. We tied this work connected to our reading goal for grades 3 to 8. We have not seen, now just one thing that I do want to note here, we're tying this progress towards the iReady assessment. Last year, this baseline data was connected to how we performed on the state test. So the baseline data for our goal, for this goal, was connected to the state test, and we're using iReady to measure it. What we wound up seeing is a very similar performance on iReady as we did last year. So we won't necessarily know whether or not we're going to come close to these marks. If all patterns stay the same way, we will be in the same position where we were this year, which means we have not grown percentage-wise compared to last year's state test. We will see whether or not that pattern continues this school year as compared to last school year, which showed about a 10% difference to the positive as compared to where we were last year. So if all things remain the same, we'll be in a very similar percentage as we were last year, which again is not where we want to be. We certainly were expecting to see a different growth rate here. The one thing I will say is that when we look at growth compared to last year to this year, our overarching growth was at 114%, was our median growth range. This year it's 129% is the median, which means that kids are making more than a year's worth of progress. But how that translates in terms of kids on or above grade level still remains to be seen based on the state assessment. So we grew more this year than last year, but not necessarily enough on the iReady to say that we've grown beyond that space to push kids into that on or above grade level range. This one is the Math Algebra 1 Regents. I do believe we're going to meet this goal based on our mid-year data. I do believe that our kids will get to this space of what our initial state was from last year. This I will let you know as soon as that data comes available, as I mentioned earlier. And this last goal around family relationships and building that inclusive and responsive space. I'll talk to you a little bit about the fact that our schools are in fact offering more and more opportunities, especially once that that COVID restriction was lifted. Many more activities and events have been occurring inside of our schools. So we'll see what our parents say in our own version of the survey that comes forth. And certainly the end year survey data from the school, the citywide survey that's been shared. We'll see how that looks comparatively speaking, hopefully in a few short months. But what does that mean in terms of our district data, and what does this look like? So for the Acadience assessment, this was all students learned to read well. This is what our trends look like, which honestly, this is the kind of pattern that you would want to see. On the very left-hand side is the well below benchmark from beginning of year, middle of year to end year, which is the blue to the gray. You want to be able to see those bars from one end going down and to the other end going up. That's exactly what we would want to see in terms of above benchmark, at benchmark. We want those bars to continue to grow by the end of the year on the right-hand side and decrease from the left-hand side. So we did see progress for our Acadians data from the beginning of year to end of year. But as I said earlier, this does not bring us into the space of where we're meeting those expectations. What you see here is also not the most updated. I try to get this together for our APs at their latest meeting. So the variation in percentage points does vary a little bit from what you saw on the slides previous, but it's close in terms of overall performance. For our Hispanic learners, we did see growth from the beginning of the year to end year, as I mentioned earlier, not to the level where we need it to be. The one positive note here is that from the beginning of the year to the end, we did see a 13% change for those kids that were well below benchmark. And that progress you can see over time has brought them either to below benchmark, at, or above as the year has gone on. So again, progress being made there, but this is something that, we do need to continue to work towards, establishing clear action steps as to how we can address these gaps that still exist here. For our Black learners, a similar type of data set. This one varied a little bit. You'll notice that we're around 47% here with the additional changes that we did note from the time that I created this particular set of slides to where we are. We're about 1% higher than what this data says for our Black learners. We did see, again, that trend of those kids from well below to below and above. You see that trend line. You can see how we're coming down from that 43.91 to 32.93. So we are seeing a positive change in terms of output, but still a long way to go here as well. Our Asian learners, similar pattern that exists for our Asian learners as much as you'll see for our white learners. Our Ls and SWDs, similar types of patterns that exist, albeit the performance for our kids is not where we would like it to be. Positive space for our Ls, which, as you know, makes up a large part of our student population. We did see a positive growth for our Ls. Just under 40% of our Ls were on or above grade level by the end of the year. Progress that we do need to continue to make as the year goes on. Now, some of the things that we've worked on quite a bit this year were around what the Acadians assessment assesses. So the phoneme segmentation, from nonsense word fluency, that you'll see, it talks about oral reading fluency, and then the ability for our students to retell. That goes through all of these spaces. These areas are how our kids have grown over time. The one that is not here in terms of a comparative, which I believe, and I'm throwing this out there right at the beginning, that we need to pay attention to, especially for our kindergartners, first graders. The Acadians assessment doesn't assess that first sound fluency, which is the first element that they're tested on in the fall. It doesn't test them again on that as the year goes on. So if we have children that are struggling with that ability to make that letter sound kind of agreement at the beginning, and we're not testing it again as the year is going on through Acadians, we need to pay attention to that, because there may be children that are still struggling in that phonemic awareness space right at the very beginning of the year that we still need to address. So while we're doing that with the program like Hegarty, we might still have children that are, and clearly still have children that are still in that foundational space that we need to continue to reassess as the year is going on, to build those skills as because it will impact that phoneme segmentation. It will impact that nonsense word fluency as the year goes on. So that is just something that is important for us to kind of continue to connect to. We'll see progress across these domains from kindergarten and first grade, albeit in some cases very small. while we went above benchmark in this particular area of nonsense word fluency, it did not change all that much in our kids that are well below or below benchmark. In fact, we saw some regression in some cases when we're looking at these foundational pieces of work. So it does call into question that we still need work in foundations and in integrity. This was the first year. I do anticipate the more that we implement this work, the more we'll see positive change as time goes on. So to me, it's not a let's move on from, it's get better at in terms of implementation, because I do believe that is going to show positive impacts as the years go on. So positive things are happening there, but we still need to stick with it, in my opinion. Chronic absenteeism data. This I'm just going to flash up just so that you can see where we were from January to May in terms of overall chronic absenteeism rates. And you can see that there is a positive output here for our kids, albeit still need a lot more work here for our children in terms of chronic absenteeism. So from the left to the right, you'll see the rates for our kids. These are things that we do just need to work tremendously on, and certainly need our DLT. We need our SLTs. We need our parent, our PTAs, our schools, our case teams to continue to work towards this end. And revisit some of the structures that have been positive for us as a district, and kind of adjust the ones that haven't been working all that much. And that's something for us as a collective group to talk about. Things that we've seen in our schools that have been positive, those mentoring programs that many of our schools have been implementing. Who has that supported? Who hasn't it supported? And how do we make sure that we improve upon this? Because one will impact the other. There's no doubt in my mind that, if we're getting our children in, we have 20% of our kids that are out, more than 90% of the time, it's a problem, and one that we have to address.
Yeah, Dr. Danton, I just wanted to say one thing. So one of the things that we had is the members of our student services team, led by Beverly Mitchell, go out to all of our schools and meet with our case teams to really see what the work that they're doing around chronic absenteeism, and to capture schools that were engaging in programs or just systems and structures that was working for their particular school. And they organized that for us and also presented that to principals. So we're going to continue in that process as well, because what I can tell you is chronic absenteeism is very difficult to move, and we are moving in the right direction. So, but it does, and I don't necessarily like the cliche to say, but it does really take a village. Everyone has to be on board, and we have to enter this. And one of the things that I've been adamant about is we enter this through a strengths-based and support-based mindset. I don't need schools calling parents and telling them that their children are absent and that's it, right? Parents know that their kids are absent unless there's some other safety issues that we need to address. But it's really about how we support parents to support their students. And then once students get back into the school, we also reinforced some of that SEL work, right? Where those teachers will say things to a student like, look who's here today. I mean, I know that many of you may have seen that when you were in school. Those are happenings that we called out and we said cannot happen, that students should always be welcome to school, whether they're there 1 day, 10 days, 15 days, or the full school year. So I think we are doing a good job in changing the narrative about chronic absenteeism, and we're all on the same page about the importance of making sure that the student feels comfortable coming to school, and we will help the students set goals. It is not up to us to just treat chronic absenteeism as a method of compliance and tell people they're not in the building. There's so much more that comes into that. And I think that's why you're seeing these numbers move in the right direction. So Francis, I see you have a question.
No, I just wanted to tell you that in our school this year, they did something called popping attendance. It's really cute. When you first walk in the school, it's on the right side. and it looks like a movie theater, and they have like popcorn because it says popping attendance, and then it has all the names of the kids who have popping attendance. And I noticed that the kids were looking to see if their name was on it. So I'm wondering if what the numbers of attendance were after that. I don't know, you would know that from 209, because that will show if something like that does work. Because it was nice to see, I thought.
Yeah, we do have that. I don't want to, I mean, we can call out positive individual schools. Dr. D'Antona can put that together, but it is exactly those types of programs and supports for students that is making an impact across all of our schools. So thank you, Frances. It's nice to see that parents also are recognizing it and working with the school to make sure that it's the best thing for kids.
Yeah, and just before I move forward, were there any questions about either the chronic absenteeism or the K-2 Acadians reading data that we just shared? Anyone have any questions about? I know I kind of went through that fast. I don't want to, because there's always more questions that you can ask about data trends. Any questions that you have about the reading data? Go ahead, Monique.
Hi, Dr. Mike. Good morning.
Hi.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning.
Good morning.
Mango, how are you?
Good.
So I'm just going to speak about the chronic absenteeism. I don't know if any of you know, but I was a parent coordinator for 14 years. I was participating on the case team. So I could just speak for maybe the school that I worked with, but also I think overall, because we were in downtown Flushing and, we are the hub of immigrant families before they branch off and move into other areas of District 25. So I just wanted to say, like, a lot of it were hardship families who may have asylum seekers, who may have lived with families and couldn't stay there too long and kind of branched out and went into the shelter system. And they fall in love with the District 25 schools because where they're sent to for shelter services or for housing is usually in the Bronx, which is where the hub is, where they have to go through and be processed. So there are families that are willing to take train rides for like an hour and a half, almost 2 hours, because they want their children to have some kind of continuous, familiar instruction and friends. So I know we found out a lot of our families weren't really zoned for District 25. And it was very difficult that once they had started, though we did have constant conversations with them about going to a school that's closer to them, they still wanted to come to District 25. So I say that to say that, are we looking into if these families are zoned for us and maybe seeing that the traveling by train and by bus, because we all know living in Queens, it's usually a 2 fare, and that's a lot of traveling. Sometimes our students were getting on buses and trains by themselves to travel to school. So I don't know if working with attendance officers to verify that the addresses we have on file, I don't know, that might help because I think we're going to probably see that there's also childcare issues and just, also traveling, I think a travel hardship from where they're coming from. And that's all I wanted to add. I don't know moving forward how we can support that in making sure that families are the children are attending schools where they can get there on time.
So thank you, Monique. One of the things that we talk about is the services and supports for students in temporary housing. We want to make sure that they have they have something continuous in their lives. And one of the things that we talk about is not having a disruption to school. When we address looking at things from a strengths-based model, it's really looking at how you can support these students who unfortunately have to move to many different spaces. So one of the things that I always say is, if you live and work in New York City, you're educating any child, right? And so even if an attendance person found that a student lived somewhere else, if they start in District 25, they're welcome here. So even if, so we don't necessarily check zoning in that way because, like we say, no matter if families are having concerns, the case team is in a different space of looking at support. I know historically that's what we would look for. We would say, so a child is zoned here and they should go to that school, but chances regulations and federal and state laws around continuity of education for students in temporary housing says they will always have a right to stay in the school that they're in before the unfortunate situation happened to them. So it's really about working with places such as OPT and other community resources to make sure that if students are taking 2 or 3 buses, and that is what's preventing them from coming to school, to see if we can minimize that through other community resources that are happening across the city. The one good thing is the pandemic sort of opened up more opportunities for resources for families to address some of the things that you're talking about. But students in temporary housing, although they may start off in the Bronx, they don't necessarily stay there. And we do want students and their parents to say, if I feel my child is comfortable in this school and this is the continuity that they can have, that we want them to have that. I will say though, there's not one piece. I wouldn't say students in temporary housing are really impacting our chronic absenteeism over others. I think, each school, for whatever reason, has different attendance issues. And one of the reasons that we had them form case teams is to get down to the heart of the matter and look into that. So if, for example, if in Monique's former school, that was the issue, the expectation for that school would be to tap into Wing, our social worker, and Lewis to make sure that they're getting all of the community resources that they need pushed to their school. I will say to you, the new principal is very savvy with that, and she's been able to get so many amazing things happening at the school to address not just chronic absenteeism, but other needs of her community. So we're really happy that she's there, but also that our principals are aware that they're responsible for the specific needs of their schools and responsible to communicating that for us. And we're responsible to make sure that we get them the resources that they need. So thank you for that example, because some of the things and the discussions that we had when they went to the different case teams is that each school has individual needs that we need to capture so we can support and channel the right way as a district.
Yeah, I totally agree. Thank you so much. And the principal there is wonderful. And I think, that's what it is. It's having those resources and how much can we give them? What are we allowed to give them? What can we provide them with? But I think the city overall is what I've been seeing is they're hiring a lot of community coordinator titles to work with students in temporary housing. But I see it more with the high schools and the junior highs. I'm not sure if elementary schools are doing that as well, where they hire community coordinators to solely work with the student in temporary housing and those families. And they're also putting them inside the shelters. So just so you know, that's also a resource that they are putting community coordinator titles inside these hotels to assist families as well. But that's something, like I said, we didn't have in the beginning. So it's great to know that we have those resources now. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Monique. And part of this process too, we also have an attendance coordinator in the district that's going to be working with our attendance teachers as well that go out and support our schools. So this is a multi pronged type of approach that we have to take in order to support all of our kids. And there's no one student issue that's necessarily alike. There are a lot of variables that go into what may cause a child to not be in attendance. Our goal is that we're doing what we can at the school level to tap into whatever those things are, and support as best we possibly can to make sure that our kids are in school. And it starts at the earliest of levels. Our attendance in our middle schools is far better than our elementary schools. And that is our current reality. And it starts off in pre-K, kindergarten, first grade. And it's about making sure that we're setting those high standards, because if we want our kids to be able to read and read well, they have to be in school. And what we've seen is that our attendance rates, certainly for 6, 7, 8, are in a different place than our early childhood. So it's about how do we do a better job in those earlier grades to make sure that our families know that the day that there's a sniffle, it doesn't necessarily mean that your child is ill and they have to stay home. Or if you have a sniffle as a parent, doesn't mean that because you're not feeling well that everyone else needs to stay home. So there are lots of different things, but we need to continue to work on it, certainly as a district.
Well, wait, one
So,
last
yeah.
thing moving forward. I think when it comes to attendance, we really, really need the support of our parent leaders, because that is how we're going to move this. A lot of decisions, and I speak, as a parent around this work, a lot of decisions in early grades about student absenteeism comes from the adults, right? And I've given you examples myself. And Shirley, I don't know if, just in terms of high school, how many times my son loved going to high school. He was up and out all the time. My daughter, if I don't be on her all the time, there's a million excuses of why she can't tell me she's coming to school. She's stressed. She has a lot of assignments. She has this, she has that. So for a parent, it never ends. So those earlier grades, you're like, oh, it's snowing, or, oh, it's just easier for me to keep her home today. But high school is just as bad. And I think we all have to work together. There's all these different moving parts, like bringing up what Monique said. And then saying to a school, if a parent comes to the school, here's the resources that we have to make available to them. But then the parents got to say, I'm going to get on those 2 buses, or I'm going to work to get these free Uber resources, and I'm going to make sure my child is there every day. I think there is that merging of this work, but parents play that huge part. Shirley, I saw you came on.
Yeah, I'm saying thumbs up to that, because again, it has to, you need to know that your child, or teachers need to know their students, who's there, because some love to go to school. Some are looking for, even if it's just band class or to play sports, but some are coming to school because of enrichment activities. Some just love school. Some is just like, this is my responsibility, I'm going to go. So there is a lot of moving parts when it comes to, it's the same in high school, if they have those good practices or norms prior coming to high school, it makes it easier for them.
But Shirley, I will tell you, chronic absenteeism in high school is the worst out of everybody in the city. So I think, I think it's based on, definitely student choice, but it's also things that start from the home when they're young.
Yeah.
Right. It's about making sure those kids get to school. So, all right. To be continued. Thanks, Mike. Sorry.
Yeah. So just moving on into the iReady reading. Now, just so that you guys know, I didn't realize that the bars kind of get flipped a little bit here. So what was blue earlier for the early childhood is a little bit different. So the blue bar and the gray bar, I'll explain this in a second. So if you see the gray bar here, the gray before was showing the last assessment. Now it's showing the first one. So the blue is the last assessment that we took. So all of the blue bars here are the last assessment. Before you saw the lines coming down, now you'll see them going the other way. And that's basically saying that the way that you're looking at progress is just different in this chart than it did in the previous one. So what we did see was a change from beginning of the year to the end of the year in terms of overall progress. We did grow from 47% of kids early on to around 52% of those kids early on. The one thing that I did cite earlier, and I think this is important, is that the overall growth of our kids was 129%, was the median progress, which means that 50% or more of our kids grew by a year and a quarter's worth of time. So that means that they grew more than 1 year's worth of growth as compared to where we were last year, which is 110%, which means that they grew just a little bit above made a little bit more than 1 year's worth of growth by the end of the school year. So we made more progress this year in terms of the median progress as a district, and every single school in our district, when we look at iReady, was above the median line in terms of making progress as a district. So they have 4 quadrants, and every single one of our schools was in the high progress quadrant this school year when compared to national data from iReady. So we are making progress, high progress comparatively speaking to the rest of the country when it comes to our kids when we look at the iReady results. For our all students, as you can see here, we went from 18% of our kids at the beginning of the year at that mid or above to 33% by the end, and 18% to around 19%. So not as much in the early on. But we did see reduction in the number of kids that were below grade level, which is important for us as a district. So we are making progress, but comparatively speaking against our goals, it does not show it yet. Hopefully we'll see a little bit of a different output when the state test comes back. We'll see what that looks like at that point. It does look like it mirrors the overall performance, but progress has improved from 1 year to the next for sure. When we're looking at our Hispanic learners, yes, we've seen progress here. We do need to see a lot more progress than what we're seeing for our Hispanic learners. We did grow from 27% to 33% by the end of the year. That is something that we still need to work on for sure. Positive change for children that are 3 or more grade levels below. You can see that far right bar where 3 grade levels below. 2 grade levels below, we're seeing that downward trend of children that are not in that space and moving more towards the on or above. But as I said, 33% is not something that we find acceptable for us at the district level. We need to continue to work on this for sure, and will continue to be a priority, as you'll see in our goals shortly. Similarly, for our Black population, while we have seen progress for our Black learners, similar type of scenario as our Hispanic learners compared to all students, you can see that the bars are far different when we're going through each of these subgroups. These were the 3 primary groups that we attended to: the all students versus our Black learners versus our Hispanic learners. While progress is being made, yes, we're still below what our expectations are for these subgroups and do need to continue to work towards that end. You'll see a similar type of pattern for our white learners as compared to our all student subgroup that we saw in the beginning. Very different from our Hispanic and Black learners in the sense of the overall percentage performing at or above grade levels is at a higher rate for this particular subgroup, as well as our Asian subgroup, as you can see here. And a similar pattern to our Black and Hispanic learners, as you will find with our students with disabilities and our Ls. The one thing I will say about our students with disabilities is that I do believe that this will result in us performing at a higher rate than we have in the past for our students with disabilities than we did in previous school years. So this has us around 23%. If patterns remain the same as what they did last year, we will perform at a higher rate for our students with disabilities than we did in the 21-22 school year. But things will, all things remain to be seen with this particular subgroup when the state test results do come back. Similar type of scenario for our Ls. Our Ls overall were on or above, we're at around 13%. We did see a pretty good reduction of children that were multiple grade levels below. I do believe that we will meet the expectations, that we meet the benchmark spaces of where we were last year, this year, once those state test results do come back. When we're looking at it from the lens of performance on phonics, phonemic awareness, you'll see that our kids in grades 3 to 8 by the end of across grade levels, we still have work to do, certainly for our kids in phonics. iReady still shows that 26% of our 3rd graders are currently performing 1 grade level more below when it comes to phonics. Our 4th graders as well And that continues to trickle down further as we get to grade 8. But children in grades 3 through 8 that are still struggling with phonics-based skills, we still need to work on our MTSS work to ensure that we support this in a consistent way as the years go on, so that we have fewer children that are currently struggling with phonics-based skills beyond grade 2. The goal is that our kids are already met the expectations by grade 2, so that we are really focused on reading to learn by these upper elementary school grades through middle school, and then certainly beyond into high school. High frequency words. This does not seem to be an issue for our kids across grade levels. Certainly 7%, 5%, 3%. This is not an area that is of high need, comparatively speaking, to our phonics-based skills and our kids' ability to decode. And as you'll see here, when it comes to vocabulary, overall comprehension in both reading, literature, and comprehension, you'll see about 40% to 50% of our kids are still not in a space where comprehension is where it needs to be, and vocabulary development as well. So grade 3 all the way through grade 8, you'll notice that there is a trend of 50+% from grades 4 through 7, lower in grade 8 and lower in grade 3. But needless to say, it's still an area that's going to impact our kids' ability to comprehend text. If we don't have a high command of the academic language, then it's certainly going to impact our kids' ability to comprehend, which is what you see here. Similar patterns from vocabulary exist. Here's vocabulary, exist the same way that they do in comprehension, overall comprehension. You'll see a pattern there that exists between these two things. Does anyone have any questions about that, or is there anything unclear about these graphs? It seems to me that it's pretty clear that yes, we're making progress from blue to gray in each of these areas, but it still shows that we have a significant amount of work to do when it comes to building the comprehension skills of our kids overall at the district level. Any questions or comments about reading? Okay. When it comes to math, we kind of link this into the college and career readiness goal, and the data that you're going to see here is not necessarily reflective of what our goal states. I'm just sharing with you so that everyone knows where we currently stand across grades when it comes to mathematics, from BOY, MOY, EOY. As a district, we have made progress from 41% to 57% from the beginning of the year to where we are now. I do anticipate that we will improve upon this based on the state assessment from where we were last year. All things remain to be seen, though. You know, what I believe will happen and what actually happens, you know, are two different things. You know, this is a best guess that we will improve from where we were last year, based on output from the iReady assessment. Here you will see the gray bar represents the end of year assessment, which you will see is very much higher than where we were at the beginning of the year in terms of overall math progress. So our kids have certainly improved from beginning of the year to end. And this is across subgroups. Where we were at the middle of the year, we still have a very significant percentage of children falling in that one grade level below range, which means that they certainly are in that space where we can make that progress to get them on grade level, and which is something that our schools and us at the district need to continue to focus on as we move forward to build our kids to that college and career readiness that we are seeking. And the similar patterns will exist across our subgroups. Clearly, our Black and Hispanic learners, our students with disabilities, and our Ls, all subgroups have made progress. As you can see here for our Black learners, from 38% of kids multiple grade levels below, we reduced that by a significant percentage and brought that level up where we're seeing that progress. And you'll see that same type of pattern across our subgroups more pronounced in children where they had a larger number of children that were well below standard before. Much more progress in that range from the beginning of the year to the end of the year when we're talking about mathematics, but still a significant number of kids that we have to move into that proficiency level by the end, as we begin planning for September. Our Asian learners performing at a much different rate here compared to our all students. Our Hispanic learners, our Black learners, and then our Asian learners performing at a higher rate in terms of performance, comparatively speaking, to our other subgroups. Similar type of pattern for our white subgroups. Percentage, again, by about 20% difference from beginning of the year to end of year, but 57% is still not where we need to be for our subgroups, all student subgroups in general. Similar for our students with disabilities. Again, if you look at the far bar from 42% of our kids well below to 18%, a lot of progress has been made there, but again, not nearly enough for us at the district level. And the same for our L learners. Now, what does this mean for us? What's interesting when we're looking at number sense and operations, which is really super important for our kids, is that we have those basic, that basic number sense for what number really means. For algebra, you'll notice that we've made progress throughout the years across kindergarten. The areas that actually showed itself to be the area of greatest need in terms of children performing below grade level was certainly in our measurement and geometry groups. This is something that we're going to be paying close attention to, certainly myself and Beth from our team. It doesn't mean that number sense is not a crucial set of skills or algebra. It just so happens that we're seeing the biggest gaps in measurement and geometry, and there are likely things that are connected to both algebra and number sense that are contributing to that space, with why geometry and measurement are areas of need. Now, the one thing that I will say to all of you is that you'll see the highest percentage of children well below one grade level below does happen in our grade 8. We're likely going to see this on the state exam as well, because we had 1,300 to 1,400 children that did not take the iReady 8th grade assessment because they're taking the Regents exam. So we're pulling about 1,400 children out of the equation here that will be taking the Regents, that are taking the Regents this school year. So it does skew the 8th grade results quite a bit. So just bear that in mind when you do look at this. Our overall 8th grade results across number sense, algebra, measurement, and geometry all show a rate that's higher than other grade levels, mostly because we're taking away a significant number of children from being administered this assessment. Having said that, though, we should not be in a space where we have 60% of our kids in any grade level, regardless of who's being removed from that equation, below grade level in any given area of assessment taking. So we are seeing improvement from beginning of the year to end, but a lot more work needs to be done here for sure when it comes to mathematics as well as reading. So that was a mouthful. I try to do that as fast as possible, not to keep you guys here too long, because I can talk data all day with you. But this is just kind of the overarching pattern and theme. We've made progress, but not enough. Is basically should be the theme of my conversation with you guys today as a DLT, and becomes the question around goal setting for next year. So at the district, what we're thinking, and certainly love your feedback. I'm going to show you some of the feedback that our principals have shared and some of our schools have shared thus far. We're opening this up into the entire district for everyone to give us feedback from school leadership teams to from instructional leadership teams at the district level, and we'll be opened up to our district teachers as well shortly within the next week or so around what we're going to do next. So timelines for all schools is that CEPs are being completed as of this week and made available for Superintendent Domingo and I to review and then attest over the next month or so that there's alignment between budget and goals. But here's what we are thinking that we want to pay attention to moving into next year. Foundational reading skills that we're going to sustain our work on Hegarty and Foundations. We want to continue to build on the training that our teachers have received this year, which is around foundational reading skills, and then build that focus on vocabulary this school year. We plan on continuing to unpack HMH and implementation of HMH at the start of the school year. We want to refine our current practices for MTSS. We did do an inventory across our buildings that was led by Angelique from our team. A lot of the findings from that are going to go into making adjustments to our current MTSS practices from the instructional core in Tier 1, and then those intervention supports in Tier 2 and Tier 3. We're going to be working heavily towards that. Mind Up training. This is our social emotional learning program, which will be implemented across grades. So in kindergarten through third grade, this is what our focus will be moving into next year. Similarly, when we're talking about 3 to 5, HMH, unpacking and implementation, this, as you know, is going to be something that we're doing across grade levels this year. We will continue our focus on MTSS. We're waiting on data from Clavis. That was the L intervention program in grades 4 and 5. The reason why we're waiting on data from them is because we're not entitled to all of that information because it's from their research study. But they are going to give us an analysis in July in terms of how those kids performed based on the services that we were able to provide them. So we're hoping to continue that work. And we're going to build in our math work from grades 5 through 8, specifically to promote that access to Regents readiness, mostly because we departmentalize in many of our schools starting in grade 5, so it won't impact their ability to be both in reading and in math at the same time. So we can really target our professional learning for our kids across those grade levels. In Reading to Learn, for our grade 6 to 8, we're looking to continue those practices around close reading of complex text, refining our MTSS work. HMH is into literature is going to be implemented across the vast majority of our middle schools as well. So that will likely be embedded inside of these practices also, which lent itself to the goals that we created and that you saw last time. I'm not going to read through all of them again, but it is around HMH implementation and growth in terms of outcome by around 5% is what we're hoping for as a minimum. We did not meet that minimum. So I know questions this year became around, well, is it high enough? The answer in general for me is no, but we also have patterns that say we haven't been able to get beyond the 3 over the past several years. So we will hopefully sustain that around 5%, unless of course you guys believe it should be there otherwise. There are questions around this particular goal and whether or not we should connect it to chronic absenteeism, social emotional learning, or occurrence reports, and this is around the implementation of Mind Up. So you'll see that in just a moment, and I want to bring you to some of the data from our surveys from our principals, because this, as I said, you've already seen, it's around growing in grades 3 to 8 and K to 2 by 5%. The math goal you saw already. The only addition is some of our schools have said, well, what about grades 5, 6, and 7? They don't take the Regents. What do we want to see there? So we included the idea that state results should improve as well if we're focused on it. So we did make that change in that space also. And then this last piece, we've received a lot of feedback around the parent goal, which you'll see in just a moment. So I'm going to put into the chat, and I'm going to give everyone a chance to look at this Padlet on their own, and I'll keep it on the screen if you prefer to look at it here. But I just wanted you guys to see what our schools have been saying about each of these 5 goals. We did receive some really good feedback in a number of them. So either you can click the link that I provided in the chat, or you can read along, and I'll scroll down each of them in just a moment, but I wanted you to see what our community has been saying. And if you feel like there's any adjustments that you believe we should be making to these goals in the preliminary state that they're in right now. So just take the next 3 minutes to kind of peruse and see what it's making you think as a DLT member. Let's take one more minute, everyone, and then we'll come back together. So I'm wondering if is there anything that any of you guys noticed, or anything that kind of called out to you from the feedback that that you saw there from each of the 5 priority statements that the chancellor has shared? Yeah, go ahead, Joe.
Okay, so my first reaction, or my first thought was maybe we're being overly optimistic with setting up our goals at 5%. And then I thought, well, maybe we're not aggressive enough on the execution. But, you know, in all fairness, the system is not uniform yet, right? Next year will be the first year that we'll have a uniform system throughout. So I think that, you know, this year was a little tough because we're still different systems. So I think you'll get a better understanding next year. I mean, congratulations, because we're ahead of the rest of the city, but I'd like to know that the goals stay at 5%, right? That's my
Agreed. Thanks for that, Joe.
Just so you know, Joe, I went back and forth with that as well. But you know, then you say like we're being too aggressive, and then we're saying, but why would we say that? It's kids. We want to be, you know. So I'm on the same page.
Any other comments? Anything else that you saw inside of the feedback that came from the community thus far? Anything else that you're thinking as a DLT member when it comes to these goals that we've set? Again, you know, it's around improving outcomes for our kids, K-2 and 3-5, 3-8. You know, both in reading and in math. Go ahead, Joe.
I'm sorry, I keep talking, but
No,
regarding
please.
the absenteeism, I think it's not just the surveys. I think the parent coordinators, I think the message needs to be consistently thrown out there to the parents, the importance of not being chronically absent and the effects that will have on the child, because I still don't think that parents get it.
So Joe, would you recommend, so the all students are physically and emotionally safe? You know, we did have Mind Up is kind of a program that we're building in. It's intended to build that social emotional safety for our kids over the course of the school day. Do you think because I saw a lot of comments were around, how do we make sure that this goal is aligned to something instead of just saying we're going to implement Mind Up? Do we want to connect Mind Up, do you think, to also supporting chronic absenteeism, or do we want to have two separate goals?
I think absolutely. I think they're definitely interrelated, and I would put them together. That's my opinion. Absolutely, because we don't know why students are not coming to school. It might be related to the emotional aspect, right? So why not tie them together?
Any other comments on that? Thanks, Joe. Any other comments, Teresa?
Hi. As a school that implemented Mind Up in our school this past year, there are a lot of things within Mind Up where children had things to look forward to. So it was one thing building on another. So therefore, like in a culminating event. So children knew they needed to be there in order to participate in it. So I think that was something that it could go hand in hand with the chronic absenteeism because of the culminating events, because of the things, if you missed something, you wanted to make sure you caught up. So I think it was really important that within the Mind Up lessons that we include that. Having the chronic absenteeism being part of that is fine. Like, I think that's fine.
Awesome. Thanks, Teresa. Any other comments, any other noticings inside of the goals, the feedback? I mean, it seemed as I was reading it, I'm not sure about everyone else, that, especially priority 1, 3, and 4, received a lot of positive, that the goals were very clear. It seemed like most of the commentary around that was very clear. The two where there needed more clarity was was around the social emotional learning and the inclusive parent goal around measurement. What is it that we're really looking to achieve? And I think it's worth coming back to, because we included that parent goal in there because of the importance and its connection to HMH implementation. But not necessarily heavy on results. There's not really a lot in there in terms of, what is the actual impact that we're looking to have. And, I'll put that one into the chat too, just so that you guys can see that. that we're kind of talking about, informing and gathering feedback from parents, but the result is far more minimal there than it would be with the other ones. So go ahead,
Yeah,
Monique. Oh, yeah.
I don't, yeah, I don't have to tell you that our highest performing schools are the schools with the highest parent engagement. I mean, that's just consistent with what we know, because that partnership is really what builds a deeper understanding of how we could create opportunities for all students to be in situations where they learn best, right? Like, I've had conversations with parents to say, like, what does that mean to talk and speak with the school about what the needs of your students are. The other piece that we're channeling this is we're pulling in parent coordinators. And I've been speaking a lot with principals. Over the years, we have put our parent coordinators through a tremendous amount of training that's been aligned to what we want to see happening across our district. And now it's really about how principals channel their leadership too, to say it's not enough to say we don't have parents engaged. I even said to some principals, like, have your parent coordinator bring you 5 new parents that you normally don't connect with or speak with, but bring them to you, so you can engage with them in a different way. So I think you're right, channeling Mind Up to that piece is important. But once again, like, we're finding that in order to move the students that we need to move, we need to have parents more closely aligned and stronger parent leadership. Go ahead, Monique. Sorry.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say, like, just as a parent also, I've had my kids go through District 25. And just to say that as a parent, it's overwhelming the amount of information that's provided to us. And that's, it's a great thing, but also it can hurt us in a way. We have to make sure that the information we're providing for the families is not overwhelming. And understandable. It's almost like me, I'm not a physician, but I go and take, a family member into the hospital and the doctor's explaining to me in his terms, right, what he's going to do. And so it's almost like with the Department of Education, we have a lot of words, a lot of terminology, and you guys are experts at what you do and everything that you know. But how do we take that knowledge and provide it to the families in sort of a layman's term? Because we have to understand too that English is not their first language. Some of our families may not be educated and do not understand. They can comprehend, but we have to make sure that the information we're giving to them is not so overwhelming, because on top of you being a parent, providing for your family, going to work every day, making sure there's food on the table, you feel, and I know my family's felt, well, I'm giving my child to the school, and so I'm expecting the school to educate my child, right? I'm here, yes, to support my child when it comes to homework and taking them to school, but a lot of this information can be overwhelming. So I just want to say, just as a parent, that that's something that we need to look at, and that these programs that are coming out, the goals that we have, reading them could be overwhelming for families. So how do we then, even as parent coordinators who want to support the changes that are occurring, and we want to make sure our families are knowledgeable, we have to take this information and bring it to them in a way that they can comprehend, and then be that useful parent advocate for their child.
Yeah, thank you for that, Monique. And listen, I think, the context around informing, there's lots of thinking that we have to do in that respect. I'm a parent, I have 2 kids, and I wish I can tell you that this is, maybe I shouldn't admit this, but I can't tell you that I'm always looking at every single thing that comes from my kid's school either. I thank God for my wife every day that she pays a great deal of attention to that. But one thing I will tell you, though, is that if the school called me and said, you know what, Mike, I would love to have an opportunity to connect with you, I'm picking up the phone. I'm having that conversation. So when Danielle talks about the idea of, who are those 5 additional folks that you can communicate with, sometimes it's as simple as picking up the phone and having that conversation. And that's notwithstanding what you just shared, Monique, that what you just shared is super important too. But I think sometimes connecting with needs some of that personal touch to make sure that the families that we want to communicate with, that we do so. Sometimes they just need to hear a voice on the other end. Having an email is, it's become the new bottom of a school bag.
Or a workshop, right?
you know,
Like every time I meet with parents, they're like, I do not want a workshop. So we say to parent coordinators, if your parents don't want workshops, don't do them. Like we have to meet our parents where they are, not where we want them to be, because it works for us. So it's the same thing with DLT and SLTs. SLTs have to meet at a time that's convenient for parents, no one else. It has to be convenient to parents.
Yep.
So I think that sends a very strong message about expectations that come from the state about how we really engage parents. I think the other piece is language barriers are really important and we need to break through them. But I will say I'm very proud of our our principals, because they've hired so many bilingual and multilingual parent coordinators that are connecting with communities in ways they never have done before. But, it really is also about sort of reimagining and rethinking support for parents, because, Monique, life is crazy, and it's crazy for people like me and Dr. D'Antona and Joe and Shirley and Francis. But we look at school as part of our daily work. And I think that's the difference that we need to start supporting our parents in. Like, I filter out the things that I'm not going to engage in my child's school because I see the bigger picture. And that's not because I'm an educator. It's because I'm a parent that's engaged, and I say, like, these are the things that I'm going to, because these are the things that I think will most benefit my child's education. Like, my daughter's graduating. Today they're doing this wonderful thing that I think I want to do in our district, where they do and Shirley, you should think about this. They do a clap out. I mean, it would be hard, but like the kids put their caps and gowns on today and they go back to their elementary school and the kids hold up signs and celebrate them, right? And all the little kids clap out, and it's about like watching
That's
kids
awesome.
go from like K to 12. I'm missing that today, right? But like, that's my choice, because I have the bigger picture, but instead I go to the award ceremony or I do something more academic, and I have that balance. I don't think we speak to parents about that balance, about scheduling themselves and making those decisions. Instead, we just throw 50 different things at them, which is what you're talking about, that it could be overwhelming. But we never talk about the skill set that like Shirley and Joe and Francis have. Like, you can go to this, but you don't have to go to this one, or this is like the most important situation, or, let's talk about the calendar for this month. So I think we need to talk about that a little bit more and what you're surfacing, because that's important too. Go ahead, Shirley, because I when you see Shirley's face, she wants to say
she's
something,
ready.
Right?
No, you hit it right on the button. It's like, just like we want our students to be able to self-organize, parent leaders need to be able to determine the same way, set priorities. It's important, because with this virtual world,
it's a lot.
It's just way too much meetings, right? And especially now that we're going going back in person, a lot of these things are going back in person, picking and choosing, which meetings that we need to, prioritize.
Now, going back to what Monique said, now add and layer in a language barrier and just think about that bigger picture. So when you actually sit and talk about it in this way, you realize how much work we have to do as a school. Just our systems have to change, and the way we approach things have to change. So, from this conversation, as always, I think Mike and I are really going to go back to the table and sort of rethink that. Our parent engagement one is always the most difficult one for us, because we want to be able to hit the nail on the head, like you say, Shirley, and get it right for our parents, so we can continue to build those relationships that will work in support of students. Right. And Sujin, I'm glad you're here, because, in terms of PAC, that might be something that we need to speak about a little bit more, just in terms of how we engage parents about the parent engagement money in our Title I schools. I think that all of those things are connected. Okay. Are we? Okay,
yeah, that pretty much is a wrap. And
thank you.
Yeah.
If there's any other feedback around, what the end result, because that's kind of what the feedback that we've received thus far was, really around the results. So we're doing this because, right? What do we want to have kind of evident at the end of doing these kind of things. And that's a
And I
tough
think
one to have.
yeah, and I think what Mike is saying, you need to hold us accountable for, where it's
Right.
not just we're going to connect with parents. Like, what's the outcome from that? And I will tell you, Mike and I did one time work with our DLT and tie outcomes, student outcomes to parent engagement, and it didn't work out well. So if we're going to do it, I think we really have to be strategic in what do we want to see. And I think that there's a combination of what Monique said, what Shirley said, you know, just in terms of what would be the output if we change the way we approach this for our families. So Mike and I will think about that and we'll come back
Yep.
to the table. Yep.
Yeah. Oh,
Suji-
sorry.
Go ahead.
Sujin, sorry. I just had
Hi.
one thing because I know that at you know, at the Title I PAC events that we've done at 242 and at 21 and at 185, we've gotten a lot of engagement with parents when, you know, and Mrs. Bouchard does this all the time throughout the whole year anyway, without the Title I PAC money, just on her own. There are just fun events to hold. It's just fun events. Like we just had the STEAM night and we had other events also, like I think for 242, it was to really focus on the children's level, which was like international instruments and having kids be able to touch them and see what it's like. So I would say definitely like fun things that will bring families in. And you're right. The last thing I want as a parent as well, I do not want another workshop because for me, the word work is in there. And the last thing I want to do is like work at this workshop, really.
Yeah, you come home from work to go sit at a workshop, right? I get it.
So
All
yeah,
right.
I really don't want to do any work in the workshop and have to like sit there and think and do things. I just want to go and have fun with the kids, you know, when I have the time. But yeah, thank you.
Yep. Thanks, Suji. Okay, Dr. Mike, you're done.
All set. Yes.
Yep. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, everyone. I know there was a lot of me talking, but I just wanted to give you kind of like the overarching picture of where we are today.
Yep. All right. So I'd like to move on to Gus. How are you, Gus?
I am here. Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Yep. I just wanted to begin by saying I'm very pleased and grateful for another academic year with the DLT in District 25. It is my 20th year supporting District 25, and I'm grateful for that continuity. I believe I have the greatest continuity than anybody in the city with my Queens districts, and I'm very grateful for that. And hopefully I will be back and join you in September. And based on that experience, I can tell you that Dr. D'Antona's presentation is comprehensive and excellent, and much better than any other data presentation I've ever seen in District 25, including my own. There
you go, Dr. Mike.
I'm very appreciative of that. It's a good segue to the DCP. I think you clarified the needs. And as I said, I believe at the last meeting, or maybe I didn't have that information in the last meeting, they have informed me that the DCP this year is an update year. So you can have the same or similar goals. And you might want to revisit, you know, some of the goals and keep them similar, since as you indicated, the data indicates that you made progress, but you didn't achieve some of them. So in the template, which I received about 20 minutes before the DLT began, has not changed dramatically. There are some stylistic differences, and I will share it with you momentarily. So the timeline for having a draft DCP, I've been told, is the end of July. The process will be similar to what it was last year. We will submit the draft DCP to Central, and then the Central team will provide us with feedback. And it's good that you have that meeting set up in August, because hopefully we will have that feedback by that August date, and we can take it into account and see what Central indicates. Now, I will be in Europe from July 10th to the 28th, but I expect to be here all of August. I've spoken with Matt Zwillik, who some of you know, and Will Manicus at Central, part of our Central team, and they will provide any support while I'm away in Europe. Although, as some of you may know, I answer emails from Europe. Just take the time difference into account, and I'll be checking my emails while I'm away. So, without further ado, let me just get the DCP template up. I can share my screen, right? I think Lewis always allows me to share my screen. Nope, host participant, screen share disabled.
Go ahead again. Try again, guys.
Okay, I will try it again. Great. There it goes. And like I said, I just got this and I took a quick look at it. Can everybody see the screen?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Now, let me, as a reminder, what I received this morning is a Word file. This year, the DCEP will be done on iPlan, and all of you will be able to access it on iPlan and leave comments. So when I received that email this morning, I was told that the superintendents are going to receive the DCEP template sometime later today. Now, I'm unsure whether that means that the superintendents will only receive this Word version, or it'll become active on iPlan. I assume that they will activate it on iPlan either today or shortly, because all of the work needs to be done on iPlan. And I'm not sending this template out because the expectation is that the work will be done on iPlan. I'll give it to the district office if the district office wants it, but I won't email it to all of the DLT members because my expectation is that you'll all be able to see it on iPlan. And if you have any difficulty with iPlan, I will be around to help solve that difficulty. Just let me know. So I'm just going to go over it sort of quickly to just give you a sense. The difference is mainly stylistic. So here's the usual information. This is the signature page, which we don't have to worry about right now. Maybe we'll be meeting in person next year and you will be signing it off as we have in the past, or we'll use the function that we've used online for years now. And we'll see if we have any DLT changes. So the district summary is similar, and the district staff are very good at updating it. I believe that, or I've been told that in iPlan, what they will do is they will fill in, because the template is so similar, all of our information from last year's DCEP into the template in iPlan. So we won't see any blank pages. What we'll see is we'll see everything filled in. If Central doesn't do that automatically, I will do that for you. I will take the information and cut and paste it into iPlan, so you're not looking at a blank document. Although my expectation is that they will do that because that's what they did for the schools. So then you see here, the priorities are the same, the ones that Dr. D'Antona just went over. The format is a little different. So you see the priority and root causes, and then you see the SMART goal, and now the SMART goal is target population baseline data, a SMART goal. It'll be tiles, just like the CEP, those squares that they have, they call them tiles in iPlan. So it'll look, the sections, I believe, will look different in iPlan. So, oops, cancel. Okay, I should be able to go down. Progress monitoring. All students. So then you put in the district goal here, key strategies, implementation monitoring. And then you see this progress check. It looks different than it did last year. The content is the same. It's just the format is a little different. And then the family and community engagement section and resources. The action plan is that, did we see the action plan above? Let me see. Let me go up. The action plan is different in the following way. You don't have to remember last year how you had to break up the action plan between the beginning of the year and the end of the year. They have changed the format, so you don't have to do that anymore, at least based on this format that I was sent this morning. And I did see that when I looked at it. So the resources, and then this is emotionally safe. Action plan. So the action plan looks different than it did last year. You see how the action plan, there's the progress monitoring, beginning, etc. Then the district goal, the key strategies, implementation monitoring, and progress monitoring checks. I assume that what they will develop from Central, as they always do, ladies and gentlemen, is a PowerPoint that gives DLT members an overview of the changes. They just released this morning, so I don't have that. So hopefully that's in the hopper, and they will send it to me, and I will share that with all of you. But you know, the main event is to look at it in iPlan when we get it. And then priority 3, again, these priorities are the priorities that you're already familiar with. It's just the formatting is different. And target population, baseline data, measures and targets. And then the action plan, again, is different than it was last year. District goal, key strategies, implementation monitoring. It doesn't have that chronology that was part of the old format. Danielle, was the change in the formats discussed at the superintendent's meetings? Did this come out of maybe superintendent's input on the format?
Yes. So I sit on the superintendent advisory board, and it did come up. They wanted to actually do 4 checks in the year. We were asking them, you know, what exactly they would want to see, and that seemed to be more of a central check than a state check. So, you know, we were talking a little bit more about the difficulties of doing benchmarking 4 times a year as a district for such a large school district, right? So, you know, schools that have 50, 60, districts that have 50, 60 schools. So they just kind of rearranged and reorganized the 3 progress benchmarks to be a little bit more clear as to the evidence of the data that was used. I mean, it doesn't really apply to District 25 because we have the clarity of the assessments that we use. And you saw that in Dr. Mike's presentation. But for other districts, I think this is going to help organize their thinking about how they benchmark. Okay.
So it did come out of superintendent's input, which is what I suspected. And thank you for sharing that. The 3 checks are there. resources. So we don't have those long lists of activities that we've had in the past. It doesn't mean that we should not be conscious of, actions that we're going to implement in terms of, our goals. It's just that you don't have to list them in the document the way they were listed in the past. And we'll see what the tiles actually look like when they're there. And there is, I did receive two different documents. This one is the community school district document that I'm sharing. The high school one I received as well. When I looked at the two of them to, sort of running them through quickly, they looked almost identical to me. So I didn't see a lot of differences between the high school one and the district one. There were more differences, I think, last year than this year. But those will both be available to everyone who is involved in providing input on the DLT and on the high school superintendents advisory groups that help with their DCP formation. So here's priority 5. Again, it's all identical, similar in terms of the structure. Chronic absenteeism, which was discussed in detail recently, just now, by Dr. Mike. And then this is the same multi-tiered systems of support. It looks very similar to what we had last year. Students with temporary housing is there again. And so we have that information. And then the district parent and family engagement policy, which is part of the every DCP. And we will put in the old one and you will look at it. Remember, it was approved for 2 years, and the 110 plan, the biennial evaluation. Next year might be a biennial evaluation year, if I've got my chronology. This year wasn't, and so it's every other year. So it might be next year that we revisit this based on the survey data that we will get. So that's basically the format, ladies and gentlemen. You should be able to access it shortly in iPlan. If it gets delayed in some way, or we don't see it in iPlan, they have technical issues, I will share this Word version with the district, and they can share it with the DLT if needed. But I received it this morning, and I was told in the email that I received from Central that I could present it to the DLT. It did not say that I should distribute it. So being a good soldier, I didn't distribute it. And I was also in the email, it said that the template would be shared with superintendents this afternoon. So maybe they don't want it shared citywide before the superintendents get it. I have to tell you, I've been sort of a bit of a nuisance to Central because I keep asking for it. And when I didn't see it on Friday, we were told Wednesday we were going to get it shortly. When I didn't see it on Friday, on Saturday, I emailed them and said I have a DLT Monday morning. When am I going to get this thing? And like I said, I got it right before the meeting. Any questions so far, ladies and gentlemen, on this? And the timeline for a draft is at the end of the month. When it gets formally released, that was the last timeline I have. Given the fact that we just got it today, maybe they'll adjust the timeline, maybe they won't, but that was the last timeline that I was given.
Okay, we're good,
So I'm
Gus.
going to stop sharing there. And let me quickly talk CEPs.
Yep, Gus, you have about 8 minutes because we still got to do principal. We still got to do high schools.
Very quickly.
Okay.
The CEP is due on Friday, the 16th. I did send out step 3, which should have been shared with the schools. They adjusted the timeline a little bit. I saw Mike shared the timeline. The one that's in goal 3 was updated 6/1. So you might want to look at that one and share it. It's not dramatically different. Basically, the 16th is the deadline, and on the 8th is the attestation of July. 28th is superintendent's alignment. So, and New York State Ed is continuing to gather information, and hopefully they will give us whatever new accountability system they come up with during the course of the year. And I continue to help schools. I get emailed all the time. I got emailed over the weekend on CEPs, and with the district support, we will support schools and provide our usual feedback over the summer. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Gus.
Yeah.
All right, Bill, you're up.
My doc here. Share screen. Does everyone see the shared screen?
Yep, you're good.
Great.
I see it.
All right, so here we go. So for Queens North High Schools, District 24, 25, 26, and 30, we're rounding out the year here. I'm going to jump right into this piece because we're closing out the year. Superintendent's Advisory from 4:30 to 6 p.m. on June 15th. That will be the last advisory that I'm aware of. And I do know that as Gus was talking about the CEPs and the DCEPs, our office is going to be strategic with the DCEP and try to bring in parents, administrators over the summer and talk about the current status of the DCEP and how we can modify and change it. So we'll probably try to wheel in some of the superintendent's advisory pieces, as well as some of the parents, students, teachers, as well as administrators from our schools. So that goes in part with the family forum. So our last family forum will be June 27th. And we've had a lot of increases in parent involvement through that endeavor. Our recent future-led student forum was a huge success. That was on May 20th. Unfortunately, I was not able to attend. I had an engagement to attend with my family, but this really was something spectacular for all of our districts, and especially for high schools. Students led different workshops on student suicide and preventing of suicide, to cultural sensitivity, to college workshops, as well as kind of really showing all of the talents that our students have through theater productions. They had music presentations. They also had dance. And I believe artwork was shown as well. So it really was a fantastic celebration of all of our students and their talents. So we're going to move on to AP for All. So this is something that I've been pushing for the district, having intervisitations with schools across the way, and also trying to bridge some of those resources with Queens South. So you'll see some of these folks here are from Central. Some of these folks here are from Queens South Superintendency. Some of them are from Equal Opportunity. Others are from AP for All. Others are from Equal Opportunity schools. So part of what I'm trying to do within Queens North is to help teachers and to build in rigorous coursework, as well as having students present. So part of what our goal for AP for All was to have students come together in a collegial symposium where they're able to discuss their research that they conducted from the beginning of the year through different courses that they're taking in AP, and then to present their findings at the end of the year. And this was at St. John's. You can't see the over 200 plus students that were there, but we did have about 200 students. They presented their research papers, and many colleagues and dignitaries from the DOE were able to weigh in and ask the students lots of questions. It was a wonderful opportunity, and we're going to continue to grow and to build that out for next year. Now we're going to zoom in on some of the great work from our schools and our excellent school leaders.
Bill, I just have a quick
Yes.
question,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I'm
go
hoping
for
you
it.
could kind of go through that part really quickly because I'd
Yeah,
love
yeah.
to hear those. But you know,
Sure.
so can you go back to AP for all for a minute?
Yep.
So, and I'm actually speaking as a parent. So Shirley, and
Yes.
I'm sure that you've heard this too. So so a couple things.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if you guys have a similar space for this work in AP classes that Mike and I do for our Regents classes, because we got tons of kids, and I'm not talking about this district, I'm talking just in general, that take these courses and get
Sure.
0 credit. You know, like my daughter's been taking AP classes for forever, and her college is taking nothing. You know, like, so, and honestly, I want to be fair to kids and I want to be fair to parents. And I don't just want to say we're doing it to do it. So I'm wondering
Yeah.
if you guys are looking at it like that. Like, it's not just about presenting, you know, and maximizing your learning opportunities. You take AP courses for a reason. And what's that reason? And are our kids performing? Like how we admitted, we
Sure.
started saying, we're going to give access to everybody but the Regents. But guess what? We had a very, you know, we had a passing rate that we needed to address. So I'm wondering if you guys are doing that too, to say, you know, and I said the same thing to my daughter's school, like, what are you offering these courses before if the colleges that the kids are going to aren't accepting them, you know, like, so, and I don't really know how that works because that's high school. But my recommendation, if you could take this back to the superintendent, is if you're going to do AP for all, AP means for all means that there's a success rate in that too. So perhaps we can channel that because we're seeing similarities in the Regents with us, you know?
Sure.
Yeah,
So what I would speak to about that, and this is not my personal belief, this is the belief of the program AP for All, as well as Central and DOE, is that part of our function is to provide all students with advanced curriculum and to challenge all students. So irrespective of whether a child is receiving a 0 on the AP exam or a 1
I disagree
or
with
a
that.
5. But
I disagree with that as a parent.
I understand.
You shouldn't take an AP course and receive a 0.
Well,
you know, like that's what I
would,
said to my school board in
so what
my
I would
town.
counter that though is by saying that having an AP curriculum, you're automatically providing students with a more challenging and more rigorous activity in the classroom. So with that being said, that's the idea. The idea is to have all students participating and partaking in challenging courses. And I know personally myself, having gone through hundreds, thousands of classrooms throughout all boroughs of New York City, I can say that many of the AP courses are, they are more advanced and challenging. Whether our students are meeting those challenges or not and getting 3s, 4s, and 5s, obviously we want to improve on those numbers as well. But really the goal is to provide all students with the access to the advanced courses.
So, you know, but and I'm like pushing hard on this from like a parent perspective. So Bill, feel free.
No, that's all right.
I think but I think the conversation needs to happen as like, are there AP courses that are preventing kids from graduating? Like my daughter could have taken AP US, regular US history and gotten a 98, but instead she's looking at an 84, you know, like,
sure.
And you know what, this year, colleges did not do that. They had a weighted and unweighted average, you know, and many of them lean on the weighted averages. So I'm just thinking that, on the unweighted averages. So I'm just thinking that this is something for us as a DLT, if we're going to offer these courses, to engage in that conversation and say, you know, like, I hear what you're saying at the same time, but you know, I was annoyed that my son took AP Psych and got a 0. Like, why? you know, like, you know, and I think that's, go ahead, Shirley.
Can I jump in? So, I am for AP for all, but at the same time, I could see where, the goal is to get the students to pass the AP courses, not just have it, but also pass it, because it does help have something on their morale, because this is an example of how they will succeed to go to college, right? And I go get an AP exam in the highest score I could get is a 5 or 6, and I only get a 0. That isn't good for the morale.
For your soul.
And again, and then again, the college ready part. If I get a 0 on an AP exam, then I'm not college ready. So I think supplemental resources and stuff has to be access.
MTSS,
And
yeah.
and then the other part that she touched is that, okay, we're taking AP exams, but most of them are not being accepted. I know there's also the college now courses, which are being more accepted because it's actually on a transcript on a college, and it's like the exact same thing. I don't know if there's going to be in the future where we can, with the AP for all, those AP that's administered at the school and not at a college now ready course.
Yeah.
Can there be somewhere the discussion, and this is above you, Bill, I know, to have these conversations with the college board and with the colleges to get these more of these AP courses accepted in colleges. Not,
because
I know this.
The reason that I'm looking at this is because we participated in Algebra for All, and as we were going through it, we saw certain data sets that needed to be looked at a little bit more closely. So I didn't want Algebra for All to just be Algebra for All. I wanted Algebra for All to be, we're offering algebra, but now we have to actually look at skill sets of kids coming in 6th grade.
Yeah.
What do access points look like? We want everybody to have access to take these algebra courses, but we want them to be high school ready, right? Like as Shirley's saying, college ready. We want them to be high school ready. And we also want to prevent, let's just say, because we know they have to take algebra. Sometimes kids need to take that twice. We don't want them to do that in 9th and 10th grade. But that should not be the majority. It should be the minority of those kids that really struggle in algebra. But for everyone else, we want to give them access. We don't want them to get in the 70s and move on to algebra 2. And I think there should be that discussion of AP for all, because in itself, algebra for all was a great thing for us. But we had to do a lot of work to make sure that our teachers and our students were prepared for what the intent of the program was. And I think that's all I'm saying. As I have a daughter taking AP courses, I'm like mad at the high school, and it's not a city high school, just so you know. I'm like, so it's not just about offering, it's about how do we teach for success?
Sure.
Danielle, just something from the past that you will, I think, remember. When I was part of the superintendent's group, I think we were there together. We held meetings. Do you remember we went down to the college board and met at the college board? The superintendents might want to revive that at some point and have these discussions directly with the college board on the credit issue and the process as to how these courses are handled. I remember that we did that in the past, so it might be something that you can spearhead with Central in the future.
So to speak to that, Gus, there's already that mechanism set in place, and superintendents are aware and they're able to discuss face-to-face with College Board. The other thing I would suggest, and just so that everyone's aware, is that principals are really the ones that are instrumental in either determining whether they want to include AP courses or not. So they can, they can advocate for College Now courses. They could advocate for St. John's College courses. They could advocate for all different types of courses that are out there. And it's like I was saying before, AP is just one way of getting those rigorous courses, but it is one of the ways that the DOE has partnered with AP for All. But I do understand some of those challenges, and I do absolutely understand, right? We want all of our students to, get the highest scores that they can. But, don't shoot the messenger. This is just, one piece of the puzzle that's happening across the high schools. So can I move on with the next pieces? All right. Thank you, Danielle. So at Veritas Academy, they had a Dream Out Loud theme. This is a particular conference. It was a full day of students where they had workshops, multicultural event, and a talent show. It was for the entire school, and it's a new cornerstone for the school's mission and vision. to seek and to do in order to elevate student voice and to expand leadership opportunities and skills for the students as well. So you'll see it says Multicultural Festival Showcase, Food and Fashion Show, 14 student-led workshops, 2 special guest speakers. Here's some photos from that particular event. Very nice. Now we're going to scroll down to John Bowne High School. They had their CTE ribbon cutting ceremony. CTE is Career and Technical Education, and that was held on Thursday, May 18th. Congratulations to all the teachers and AP Nelson for that successful program. They also had career financial management classes, welcomed Caleb Silver, the editor-in-chief of Investopia, who is a New York-based financial media website founded in '99. The students learned about investing, the stock market, credit health as they prepared and graduate into the real world. Computer Science Institute welcomed 6 speakers from JP Morgan Chase related to the field of cybersecurity, which is a burgeoning field in America. And globally, software development and infrastructure engineering. Students got to hear about a day in the life of a software engineer and how they can better prepare themselves to enter that particular workforce. So you'll see that a lot of what Chancellor Banks is echoing about this real world education is getting a foothold in many of our schools, especially in a school like John Bowne. And then we have the FFA chapter attending the New York State FFA convention. From May 17th to the 20th in Buffalo, New York. The students completed a leadership and career development event, resulting in national qualified winners. Nadaline Navarette placed first in employment skills. Sharon Zhang placed first in social science agriculture research. Shirley Quach placed first in her animal science, agri-science research. And I'm going to mess this word up. Varbolo and Mandy Lee placed first in the plant science agriculture. The PTA sponsored a College 101 workshop for parents to review the college process, which is complicated. Parents were able to learn valuable information from the college counselors. And they had a student were able to provide insight into the college application process for other students. And to round that out for Bowne, they also had the music department presented their concert, their spring concert, May 25th. They had band, chorus, strings, orchestra, guitar, keyboard, and a percussion ensemble. And they were all proud of the students and what they did. Here's some pictures. So you can see all their wonderful faces and what they're doing. You can see coding. That's a huge piece for the future. So they're really making excellent steps here. And one last page. And that concludes the high school report.
Thank you so much, Bill.
You're welcome.
So to be continued, we'll talk about that, the AP for all, as we talk about the algebra for all.
Sure.
Yeah, so if, like I said, if you could bring that back, because I do think it's a really great question.
Sure.
That we should be tackling.
And if you'd like, Danielle, I could bring in people from AP for all to discuss with the team if you'd like in the future.
Yeah,
like
no, I
if
would
you
love
know
to
you
have
want
them
to
at
do
the
like
September,
20 minutes or a half hour, we can do that. I could ask some of those because they could articulate it, maybe, you know, talk about data from like a larger perspective, the, you know, all schools, something like that. Whatever would be most meaningful to you and the team.
Yeah, that would be great. So maybe if we could schedule that for the August or September meeting as we're kind of framing our goals, because it would be a nice connection, you know, for us as, you know, the K to 8s to sort of bridge that advanced coursework space that we've been talking about for many years. So yes, thank you. If you could for the August or September meeting, we'd appreciate that.
I'll try to do it for September, I think, because I don't know what people are doing in August, but I'll check.
Yep. Thank you. Appreciate it, Bill. Shirley, do you have a report this month?
Yep. I'm trying. Yep. Could try to be quick. So the Citywide High School Subcommittee, the hidden gem was the Urban Assembly School of Music and Art. The main presentation was from the Office of School Enrollment, to discuss high school admissions. We had Executive Director Matthew Borgini, who is the of middle school and high school admissions Executive Director. So they did a presentation, and this is what the main feedbacks. So before I continue, April's note and May official notes has not been released yet. As soon as I can get it, I will, forward it to Lewis to share with the teams. So these are my notes. So the high school admissions, office enrollment is engaging and taking feedback on admissions. They're meeting with cross-section of stakeholders, including school leaders, advocates, and families. They're interested in general feedback on Office of School Enrollment processes and improvements that the OSE can make. The Office of School Enrollment is also interested in getting feedback on specific policy proposals, for example, ways to improve the application experience for screen programs. So that was May 30th meeting, which is the last meeting for the school year for the citywide high school subcommittee. Queens High School President's Council updates. Has been assisting with elections. At our May 8th meeting, we had the Queens DA Community Empowerment Division Youth Director to speak about the programs, resources, and opportunities and services that they have for the youth in our borough. We had Interview Education and discussed their program on college essays and resumes for 8th graders and for 8th graders and up, and how they differ from other community-based organizations. One Green Apple's Family Engagement Initiative, they talked about their goals and their use of their Opus application. June meeting is tonight. We're going to remind members on June transfer records and must be done in June and witnessed by a principal. Elections must be done by the last day of school, which is the 27th. We're going to have our Queens High School President's Council elections. And then also we asked some New York City votes to come back again to review ranked choice voting. This will be our second year on ranked choice voting in our primary. And we just asked them to come to review. Early voting starts on the 17th and it's on the 25th of June. And that's it for my report.
Thank you, Shirley. Francis, do you have a President's Council report?
No, just that the elections are today. That's about it.
Perfect, thank you. Joe, do you have CEC?
So we're waiting for the results of the CEC election. I thought they were coming out maybe today, but this week they should be out. And we congratulate those members that have been elected. I just want to say thank you to everyone. You're a phenomenal team. You did great work, and it was a pleasure to serve with you on the DLT.
Thank you, Joe. Also, tomorrow night at 6:30, we are having a special CEC meeting for Contracts for Excellence presentation. Right. It is virtual, and the Zoom meeting Zoom meeting link will be found on the CEC website. Lewis, if you could just pop that into the chat if anyone's interested in attending that.
Thank you, Debbie.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Any other constituencies have announcements? New business?
Hi, it's Monique, DC 37.
Hi, Monique.
Hi. Just letting everyone know, in case you haven't seen, but the New York City had promised last year to hire 200 additional school crossing guards. And then this year they were supposed to hire another additional 200 school crossing guards. So that's 400 in total. So the New York City Police Department wants to remove those 400 slots for hiring. The union is fighting back on that because we understand and we know that school crossing guards keep our children safe. They are vital to the school community in getting kids to and from school safely. And there are many schools that do not have school crossing guards, especially not this district. I believe we have crossing guards probably at almost every single school site, but it's always in the neighborhoods of children of color where they are lacking school crossing guards. So the union is fighting and proposing and rallying to get those 400 school crossing guard positions back.
Great. Thank you, Monique.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I do actually, yes,
Hey,
Lamar. Morning, everybody. So two bits of information. One, as you may have read already, we, UFT, are embroiled in a bit of a situation with the DOE regarding next year's schedules. So the calendar, school year calendar, has already been released. And I can share with you that traditionally, and I even think contractually, both sides are supposed to agree on what the schedule looks like. So state law reads that there's a minimum of 180 school days, which has been met. But then there's no maximum to that number. And then there are some days that are in question. For example, I think there are 4 parent-teacher conferences scheduled for the year. There are some other issues that are brought up with the calendar that both parties have to agree with. So that did not happen. The DOE released that calendar that we know of without consulting with the UFT. So we're in a situation where going forward, as it stands today, things may change. I've learned this, things change. But as it stands today, there will not be any extended day offerings throughout the school. So the 150 minutes that we've done, 80 minutes on Monday for PDs and a certain amount of minutes for parent engagement and so forth, is not on the table as of right now. That's another piece that both parties have to agree to. So that hasn't been agreed to. We're not there where that's going to be the case. Going forward, as it stands now, all schools are going to revert back to the original, if you recall, 37.5-minute schedule, where there's 37.5 minutes of small group instruction from Monday through Thursday, right after dismissal. So that's what the after school schedule looks like now. I say to you now that things change as we go along. So this afternoon may be a different announcement. Tomorrow may be a different announcement, but that's where it is today. So I wanted to make sure that parents and everyone in our 25 community was aware of that. The second issue that we have, just a couple of news on endorsements as we have the primaries approaching. So Lynn Shulman is I'm sorry, I'm going to start within our own district. We have a very interesting a route that we're taking in the City Council District 19 seats. So we co-endorsed Tony Avella and Christopher Bay for that District 19 seat. So this is where ranked choice voting does come into play. We don't have a definitive person that we're choosing or that we've endorsed. We're leaving that decision up to the members, in the community, the UFT members, and they will make their final decision on the primaries coming up. Those are my 2 reports.
Okay. Any further comments?
I could go into the school calendar the whole 9, but I'm gonna leave it alone. So
okay.
And like I say, one thing I've learned is that nothing is for certain. That's the one thing I've learned for certain. So we'll see what happens, but that's what we're looking at right now. And people have asked questions about, well, what does it mean for this program? And what does it mean for that program? If you were around enough to know what busing looks like, that's going to be a concern of what our PDs look like. We're going to have to pull some strings to make this work going forward.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I will say in conversations that I had with Lamar, we have some really talented principals in District 25 who are extremely flexible and capable of managing 2 things, right? So when we had all of the PD time, we had to be strategic and support our schools in programming for MTSS. So now if we have 37.5 minutes and students will have MTSS in the afternoon, we're going to have to be strategic in trying to organize what PD will look like. Either way, we need both, especially because we're going for a unified curriculum across the district. So we're already having those conversations. And like Lamar also said, these conversations will change momentarily. They may change today, they may change next week, they may change in the summer, but our principals are used to these types of conversations and negotiations, and many of them have experience in both areas that Lamar just spoke about. And if they don't, that's something that Mike and I have experience in, right? So like I was a principal under 37 and a half minutes, so was Mike. And we've supported our principals through, scheduling proper professional learning and working with their instructional leadership team to see what they need. So for us, I think that's where we're going to be okay, whichever way the decision goes.
I just want to say that I usually don't defend Central, but I've been with the releasing of the calendar, because it's really late, right? Parents has been putting pressure to release that calendar, and I think for the most part we all understand it's tentative, because we need to put in our schedule for the fall, just like everybody else has to plan for September. The parents have to plan for September too, and we need to know if a holiday or school closing or vacation is going to occur on our meeting dates. So that's one of the reasons why it was probably. I'm learning now that y'all consult. Y'all don't have control, but y'all do consult and come to agreement on a calendar. So this is the first time I realized that's why you're annoyed with that. But we were putting pressure on for them to release the calendar because it affects our the work that we need to do.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So any other questions or comments? So as everyone has said, it has been a pleasure working with this DLT. I cannot tell you how thankful I am and how much we've grown. I want to thank everyone for the open and honest conversations. That includes Bill, for us to be able to talk about that, and and for you guys being able to push on me. It's the only way that we grow, and a lot of things that we're working towards to make District 25 better start right here in this room, I'll call it, in this virtual room. So just know that even if you are graduating, that you are always part of the D25 family. Come on our meetings anytime. And, I look to hear from all of you. Enjoy your July and your summer, but know that my team is working. And so we are here to answer any questions or concerns that you guys have. Have a lovely rest of your day and rest of the year. And Teresa, I'm going to call you about this clap out. I just got pictures. It's awesome. We're going to do it. And Shirley, we should work on that for high school. All right. Have a great day.
Have a good one, everyone.
Goodbye. Thank you.